Hi and welcome to Chris Ryan Golf. We are again at the Belfry. We are in the Telemed Performance Centre, and in this video we're going to be looking at the driver, and we're going to be looking at a couple of things that you need to do to make sure you hit this club as far as you possibly can. Just before we do that, please make sure you go ahead and follow me on my social media platforms. The details of those should be down in the corner of the screen about now. You've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, and you've got Instagram. You can connect with me on any of those. It'd be good to get some ideas from you guys on videos that you would like me to film going forwards. If you do suggest anything via those social media platforms, hopefully you will see your video up online in the not too distant future. So, the driver. We need to try and get some speed into it. We need to try and get it as far down the fairway as we can, and we're going to go through a couple of things that are present in many of the long hitters, and we're going to try and emulate those, and we're going to try and give you some things that you can do to make sure they are in your golf swing. Right, so let's look at impact. We're looking at the impact, we're looking at the lead foot, which in my case is my left foot, we're looking at the lead hip, and we're looking at the lead shoulder. Okay, so what are we after? Well, I should move that off the tee so it's not in the way. We are looking for, at impact, we want the lead hip to be inside the lead foot, and we want the lead shoulder to be inside the lead hip. Okay, so that's really important. So as you can see on the screen, you've got me hitting a driver there, and we've just stopped it at impact, and you can see how I've drawn a line which goes from the lead foot through the hip, through the shoulder, and you can see that that line is certainly not a vertical line. It's a line which is angled away from the target. Now, if I also show you a clip of me pitching, you're also going to see here that we get that line that goes through the foot, through the lead hip and through the shoulder, but you're going to notice that line is much closer to a vertical line. So what's the difference, and why are we trying to do this? Well, it's all to do with have we used the ground correctly. Okay, it's quite a sort of hot topic at the moment. If any of you out there are sort of avid YouTubers or that kind of thing, you will have seen a few things about how to use the ground. Very simply, if I push down into the ground pushes back against me. Okay, so if I was to take my setup here, if I lean over here, so I've got my foot, my hip and my shoulder roughly in a line, if I exert some force through the ground pushes back at me vertically straight up. Okay, the reaction I get is a vertical reaction straight upwards. If I'm in this position where I've got my hip inside my foot and I've got my shoulder inside my hip, if I push down now, the ground pushes back at an angle away from the target. Okay, now this is something we see in all good long hitters. Okay, what we'll often find is that if we can track their pressure or their movement of their weight, if you like, because as they're pushing into the ground, it's pushing them back at this angle, we would often see just through impact, their weight very momentarily moves back onto their back foot. Okay, now this isn't something I want you to try and do. I don't want you to try and hit the ball and push back onto your back foot, but the idea of creating this impact where we've got the hip inside the foot and the lead shoulder inside the hip is going to be very good for you if you're trying to hit those drives a little bit further. So what do we need to make sure that happens? Well, we need a pretty good stance, because certainly if I take a very narrow stance, already my shoulder is sort of over my foot already. Okay, and then from there it's going to be very easy for me to get that reaction pushing upwards, but it's not going to be very easy to get it pushing backwards. So we need a decent width of stance. Okay, certainly wider than you would have with your iron clubs. Okay, what that does is it allows my lead hip to move towards the target by some amount but stay inside my foot. Okay, now where is my shoulder compared to my hip? You can see my shoulder is probably outside my hip, so I need to make sure that from the top I can bump forward, but I can keep my hip inside my foot. I now need to feel as if I'm pushing away from the ground and pulling my shoulder almost back up this way. That's really important. That is how I'm going to get that impact, which looks more like this. Okay, what do we often see golfers do? Well, often we see a stance which is too narrow. We will often see up to the top, we'll often see this move, and then we often slow the shoulders down and we slice across it. Okay, you can see how I don't really create those sort of angles there or those positions, and that's going to be very difficult for me to then put the maximum amount of speed into that club head. Let me go ahead and hit another one for you. I'm just going to show you from hopefully a pretty decent angle, and then we'll hopefully see that impact that we were talking about. So wider stance, that allows my hip to move forward but not go outside my foot, and I'm really going to feel like I pull my shoulder up and behind me through impact. Okay, and I'd be pretty happy with that drive. So setup is absolutely key with the driver, because if we don't initiate the golf swing from the right position, from the right setup, it's going to be very, very difficult to create those images. Okay, really, really important that with the driver we get this pressure that's going through the ground pushing back at this angle. Okay, that's really important because that's going to help us move the handle up and back, and that's going to help us put the speed into the club head. Okay, so make sure the setup's correct. Make sure you've got the right feelings. If you have got a chance to video your golf swing, have a look. Try and draw a line through the foot, the hip and the shoulder, and just see what that line looks like. If it starts to get too close to a vertical line, you're not really maximising your distance, you're not really maximising your club head speed, and you're not making the game as easy as it could be. Okay, so give that a go. Hopefully it helps. Hopefully you add some distance, lower your scores, and that's ultimately what we're trying to do with these videos. Okay, thanks very much for watching. If you've got any comments, you can post those in the boxes down below. There is also a like button down there, so please hit that if you did like the video. And there's also a link to subscribe to my page down there as well. Make sure you do that if you haven't done already. Okay, thanks again for watching, and we'll see you again next time.